Hey, what is up? Happy Friday, everybody, and hopefully y'all had a great week and are getting ready for an awesome weekend. Just a quick little pre-roll here before we jump into today's episode of Felony Friday. First of all, I wanted to thank all of our new listeners who have come over from Reason. We've been running some ads on the Reason Roundtable podcast, and we've been having and noticing some new listeners. We've seen our numbers tick up. Just last Friday, we had our highest download numbers of any day ever in the history of the podcast. So thank you to all of our new listeners, our old listeners, and our new people who just stumbled across this feed and are like, what the heck are you talking about? You're welcome too. To all of our listeners of all stripes, did you know that we have a Lions of Liberty patron group, a Patreon group, which you can join by going to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. And today is actually the last day of our special. We've run it this entire month of January. And if you're a procrastinator like me, and like every successful person out there who needs pressure on themselves in order to take action, then today is the day to take action, my friends, because if you join the Lions of Liberty Pride today at the $10 or up level, any level $10 or up, on top of all the other incentives and bonuses and bonus content and merchandise and all other stuff, we're going to give you a free Roaring 20s Lions of Liberty t-shirt. It's a snazzy design. It's awesome. An Art Deco design. Very cool. So check that out. If you join at $5 too, that's cool. We'll give you 30% off on that Roaring 20s t-shirt if you want to purchase it. So please consider joining the Lions of Liberty Pride.
Welcome to Felony Friday, a presentation of the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here is your host, John Odermatt.
Felons, friends, and freedom lovers, welcome back to another edition of Felony Friday, a weekly show right here on the Lions of Liberty podcast. What is Felony Friday? Felony Friday is a show where every single week we're going to do a deep dive and we're going to examine and expose injustice in the broken criminal justice system. Now, if this is your first time listening to Felony Friday, your first time listening to any of the shows we have here on Lions of Liberty, sit back, relax, enjoy the show, put your feet up. If you're driving, please don't put your feet up. But if you've been back several times, if this is a regular habit of listening, why haven't you subscribed? Or maybe you have subscribed. Thank you if you subscribed. But if you haven't, please do so. Whatever podcasting app you're listening on, please just scroll up to the top there, punch that subscribe button, and you'll get every single episode of the Lions of Liberty podcast and of Felony Friday delivered to your little listening device. And also, if you really enjoy what you're hearing here, please think about giving us a 5-star rating and a review on Apple Podcast, especially if you listen there, because it helps with the algorithms and all that crazy stuff. Without further ado, let's get rolling with today's show. My guest today on Felony Friday is Mark Jankins, also known as Master Mark. And I first heard of Mark on Ben Pange's Homestead and Homeschools podcast. And on that show, they mostly talked about his background in landscaping and gardening, and also rapping, of course, and we'll talk about that today. And Ben mentioned he got turned on to Mark's work by his song "Gardening Is Gangsta." On today's show, we're going to talk more about his experience in the criminal justice system, and he has a song called "Dark Corners of My Mind," which I think is one of his newer songs, which sort of talks about his journey through the system and dealing with I guess, the edges of the system as well. So we'll talk about that. Mark, welcome to Felony Friday.
Well, thank you very much. And but you could just I could be known as Master Mark, and I would say Mark X, with kind of like Malcolm X did with X representing the unknown. But I think after doing a whole lot of research and trying to figure out my roots, I think I figured out what that X means. But so we'll make it Master Mark for now.
Sounds good, Master Mark. So, man, I mean, what I try to do with my guests most of the time is try to work linearly, like through their story, start at the beginning and work from there. So we'll do that, just to sort of figure out, give my, my audience, my fans, really background about you, what you're about, and where you came from to really understand your story. So I think the best place to start is, where'd you grow up? What part of the United States did you grow up in? And what were those early years like for you in your life?
Well, I was lucky enough to have grown up in a few different places, mostly from Austin, Texas. I was born in Austin, Texas, in an apartment, as a matter of fact. And yeah, when I was 2 years old, or I guess 1 year old, we went up to New Jersey. And so I lived a lot of my life in New Jersey. And then after my grandparents moved to Florida, when I was, I guess, 12. Then after that, I'd spend a lot of time in Florida too. So I'm Texas, Florida, New Jersey. And, I've been lucky enough to, see a lot of the world and get a whole lot of different perspectives. And because that's one thing I definitely notice when I go from one state to another, East Coast, West Coast, and it's like people have different ways of thinking and different ways of living. So, I've gotten to see it from a lot of different perspectives. So I feel like that's been real good for me.
And that's a big difference going from Texas to New Jersey. But I'm up in Pennsylvania, but I've been to Jersey quite a few times. Have a lot of friends from Jersey, but I know it's very different from Texas.
Yeah, my dad's ashes are up there with you, and my grandparents. My dad used to have a place over right on the New Jersey-Pennsylvania border. There was like a river down there, and that was his favorite place to go fishing. So after he died and he was cremated, they sprinkled his ashes right there in that river. And then after my grandparents died, they were also put up there. So they're right there flowing in that stream.
Right on. So you're back in Texas now?
Yep. I'm in Round Rock, Texas, just outside of Austin. And Austin's pretty much getting so big and so congested that I pretty much had to escape out here to Round Rock. And now it's blowing up pretty much the same. When I first moved to Round Rock, it was still dirt roads and stuff like that. So I like that, it was kind of getting away from all that, the heavy traffic. But man, these last 10 years, it's just really grown a lot. So, we're just having to, I guess that's why I was a little bit late on the show today, because traffic.
Yeah, I guess you have been, especially in Austin, you got a lot of people from California moving into town, right?
Man, that's like the new thing. Everybody's coming in from California. I don't know. They must have some advertisements over there. Or maybe they're about to fall off into the ocean. And I guess they went to South by Southwest one time and they're like, well, Austin's cool. Let's go there.
Yeah, I guess they're probably fleeing the taxes too and stuff like that. But
it's expensive to live out there.
So I wanted to ask you about your song, Dark Corners of My Mind, where, you really talk through, some of the things you've been through in your life, the interactions you had.
That's a deep song, because every other song that I've done in the past has always been, I'm dropping truth bombs. I'm trying to enlighten people, educate people, and empower people. And but this song, Dark Corners of My Mind, this is the first time where I really just let my soul bleed through and let you see who I am and where I'm coming from, and a lot of the things that I've overcame in my life. And then when I guess what'd you say the name of the show was? Felony Fridays?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, man, that sounds like a good opportunity to tell my story about getting my felony, because the way that went down, man, it's some really shady stuff that they do. The whole entire justice system. Oh man, I've seen it all. I mean, I spent 4 years in prison, so I've heard a lot of stories from other people too. But there's a lot of things that I've experienced firsthand, and man, you can't even say we have a justice system, because when you see so much injustice as what I've seen, oh man, it's like we'd honestly be better off with nothing and saving all that money that we're blowing on it, because that's what it is. It's a big business, and they got to keep people in them prisons. They have these deals where they have to keep the prisons 90% full. So these judges are trying to get as many people in there. It's like they're moving livestock, but they're getting paid a lot of money for it. And but yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about the way they're doing people with these plea bargains, and just the different tricks that they pull. And I guess I'll start from the beginning on that, because
So what happened? What happened with you? So you said you spent 4 years in prison. So how did you get tied up? How'd you get arrested?
Well, it was really crazy the way that went down, because I was actually going to court for one of my good friends, because he had a fight with a guy, just a fist fight. And I guess he beat him up pretty good. And I was there when it happened. And, he wanted me to go to court for him to testify, just to say what happened. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay. So I showed up and I was ready to go. And so the prosecuting attorney, when he sees me show up, he calls me into his office and he says, okay, why don't you tell me what happened? And I was like, well, we were just hanging out at some girl's house, and this dude showed up, and, they ended up having a verbal altercation and got into a fist fight. And then, they fought and it was over. And he said, okay, well, that's not what happened. He said, this is what happened. You guys lured him over there and planned on robbing him, and he beat him up, trying to, like he was trying to take his stuff. And I was like, well, that's not what happened at all. And, he didn't take anything from him. And he said, look, maybe that's not what happened, but I need you to go in there and tell the judge that that's what happened.
What the heck?
I said, man, this is my friend right here. Why am I going to go in there and tell the judge that? He said, look, man, you're going to go in there and tell the judge that, or I'm going to make your life a living hell. And I told him, man, I'm going to go in there and tell the truth. So what's the worst that could happen? So I went back out there in the hallway, and I was just, letting his family was out there waiting. And I went over there and told them, yeah, they were telling me some crazy stuff. And before I could even tell them what had happened, 2 cops came over there and slapped some handcuffs on me and told me they were putting me under arrest. I said, under arrest for what? And they said, we don't know, but you'll find out once you're booked in. And I was like, man, I haven't done anything wrong. And they were like, well, they told us to bring you in. And so they brought me to jail, and I waited. Man, they had magistrated me for a long time because there was no charges to put against me. But then finally they came back and said that I had some sealed secret indictment, and that I was in there for aggravated robbery. And so I was like, then I had to get an attorney.
Related to that same thing that happened with the fight?
Exactly. They put me in that whole mix, like as if it was me, and that, and completely bogus charges. And that's the reason why I want to tell this story, is because this is not just me. They do this a lot to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But so they said, aggravated robbery. And so I'm like, well, that's crazy. So I get an attorney, court appointed attorney. And, I tell him, this is crazy. This dude just did this to me. And I was like, but I'm sitting in jail. They give me a $30,000 bond. And so my attorney was like, okay, we'll get you out as quick as we can. They set you a court date for October. And mind you, I'm 17 years old, in jail for the first time.
Oh, wow.
I'd never been locked up before. And, so
No prior record at all at that point?
Right. Nothing. I was 17 years old and never had a juvenile record, and, still in high school. And so I'm sitting in jail, and I'm like, well, I'll go to court in October, and go to the judge, tell him what this guy did, tell him what's going on. And then, they'll let me go.
Mm-hmm.
So October comes around, and I got a $30,000 bond, and I make it to court, and then they said, okay, well, you're reset. And I was like, okay, reset for when? They said, well, they put you on for November, just a little over a month out. And I'm like, man, that's messed up. So I got to sit in jail on another month for, something bogus like this. And so, I sat it out for another month, and then November gets there, and then they come back and they said, reset again. They set it for December. And I'm like, man, like I said, I've never been locked up before. 2 months feels like a lifetime already that I'd been there. And man, they said another month. So they put it for December. And I was like, well, at least I'll be out for Christmas. And, so December 12th, I think it was, I was like, okay, I'll go December 12th. Show up December 12th, and they're like, okay, well, they're resetting it again. They're resetting it for January. And I'm like, so I'm going to be locked up for Christmas and New Year's over this mess, like just something so ridiculous. And that's when my attorney said, well, I mean, you don't have to be locked up for Christmas. He said, I could get you out right now. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He said, well, I mean, he said, all you have to do is plead guilty, and I can get you out today on probation because it's not that big of a deal. They already said that we could do a plea bargain. And I was like, but then I'd have to plead guilty. He said, I said, there's no other way I could fight it from the outside. No, but if you plead guilty, then, I'm sure I can get you out today. And that's when I was like, I wish I could go back in time, but I just wanted to get out at the time. And so I was like, all right, well, I got friends that are on probation. It's not a big deal. Mind you, I'm 17 years old and still pretty stupid about the law, as you can see. I had no idea what I was getting into, but they were playing games with me like that. And I think that's due to a lot of people. And so I ended up pleading guilty to something that I didn't even do just because they were, had me on the inside. And
yeah, which is very common. I mean, that happens all the time. And a lot of people will say, well, how could someone plead guilty to something that they didn't do? That would never happen, but happens all the time. I mean, it's so common.
Yeah. So they got to keep these prisons full, and man, they got to do it somehow. So they got a lot of tricks and a lot of games that they play, and they get people at a young age, just like that. They put them on probation, and man, them probations are not made to succeed. It's not designed for you to succeed. It's designed for you to, you have to really walk a straight line. Any little thing. I just seen so many people violate their probations. The ones that do make it, it's like, man, their whole life is just completely monitored. And, but, with my, after I got out on probation, I had done 4 years good on probation, while I was in jail. That first time even though I was still in high school, I just went ahead and took the GED test just because I didn't know when I was going to be getting out, and I had the opportunity to take it. And so I passed the GED already. So I ended up I took a year off, and then ended up going to college at Houston Tillotson in Austin. Well, I guess you're from Pennsylvania. You might not know about it, but it's a school here in Austin. And so I guess I ended up doing 4 years good on the probation, but then I got pulled over, and there happened to be a gun in the vehicle. And so right away they gave me possession of firearm by a felon, which I shouldn't have been a felon in the first place. And honestly, it wasn't my gun, but man, the way they treated it, it was like, man, I was lucky that they just gave me that.
So were you in the vehicle by yourself when you were pulled over?
No, it was two other people with me.
And one of them had a gun, or there was just a gun in the vehicle?
It was in the trunk.
Yeah.
So they just put it on me right away. And the gun would have been legal for anybody to possess. But since I had a felony on my record now, because I pled guilty to something that I didn't do, now it's possession of firearm by a felon. Mm-hmm. And so the 4 years that I had left on probation, they gave me that in TDC. And so
that was, you had 4 years left. How many years had you been on probation up to that time?
It was 3 years because it was 7 years probation.
Okay.
So I did 2 years good. And then that's when I violated, and they gave me the other 4 years in TDC. And I remember that day, my attorney said, look forward to just doing a calendar year, and, you'll be out by December. And that I had gotten my back time from when I had been in there the first time. And, but yeah, that year came along, and then, man, I saw the parole board, and they denied me that first year. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe they're going to make me do half my time. And so I get done with half my time, and then they put me on the chain, like as if I'm going home. So I'm writing home all excited. Yeah, I'm getting out, telling my mom, hey, be ready for me. And they put me on the bus. And then once I get there to the unit where people are getting released from, it turned out they were putting me on a whole different bus to a trustee camp, and I had to go over there. And
what is that? A trustee camp?
It's just a different part of the prison where they put you to work every day. So pretty much I was their free slave. But I ended up going out there to that trustee camp, and everybody's like, oh, well, people go home from there all the time. That's where they send you if you have less than 2 years on your sentence. And so, I'm still thinking, well, I could still go home any day. And then, man, that third year comes around, and man, still nothing. They ended up making me do that whole 4 years day for day. And, man, in a way, I guess that was a good thing, because I didn't have to mess with, parole and all that. But it's just crazy. Being down there for 4 years, it's like, I don't know if a lot of people believe in heaven or hell, but when you go to a place like that, man, I could say I've seen what hell looks like. I mean, the dirtiest, darkest parts of it. I seen, man, in the summer times, it's brutal too, especially, some of them units are real bad. The ACs and ventilations that don't work. It's like we were all stuck in this cell, and, people have to be in their boxers, and just, the only way you could stay cool is if you keep on jumping in the shower, like, once every hour, and don't even bring a towel. Just let it evaporate. And,
so there was a shower in your cell?
There was usually, depending on where you're at, sometimes, it's bigger areas, but that particular one, there's two showers that are right in the front where the guards can see both shower curtains. So I guess they want to watch everything over there. But yeah, it's not only bad conditions, but there's a lot of shady stuff going down with them places. All the way up the ladder to the wardens and their deals that they got going on, trying to keep them places full, and even these judges that's sending these kids, a lot of kids that don't know nothing about the law. I think that's a problem too, is that, they should be teaching this stuff in school. They should be teaching kids, how to deal with cops, and, and teaching them about their rights. I remember, we learned about the Bill of Rights in school, but we never learned about what the Bill of Rights meant. We might have learned how to recite it, but it's like they don't teach you, You might know what the Fourth Amendment is, but, do you know what that means for you and how you can exercise that right and how you can, refuse to let them search you. And they hate it when you do that. And I get them with that every time. And man, I've seen some of them just turn red in the face because they try to be real authoritative. And, when you don't know nothing about the law and the cops coming at you being all authoritative, you tend to cower, and that's what they want. They want to be the aggressor, and they want you to, do whatever they say, no matter what they say. So when you say, no, sir, I do not consent to you searching my vehicle, or no, you can't come in my house. Oh man, they get real frustrated, especially if they were already, you could already see them salivating, waiting to go through the trunk and going through. And I wouldn't even have anything on me, but I just don't. Who knows what they're going to try to put on me?
They could plant something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I gotta be safe. No, you can't search my vehicle, and you don't have any reason. There, and typically, I've had situations where, they have good. They're like, I'd get pulled over by two cops, and they have like a good cop, bad cop type thing they got going on. Like one of them is being cool. He's like, yeah, man, I understand. You want to exercise your rights, and I think that's really cool, man. He was talking like that with me. But the other one, he's over there telling my wife, he said, yeah, your husband, he's seen, because they pulled me out of the car, and I just went ahead with it because my wife and my son is in the car, and I'm not trying to make a big scene about it, but he tells my wife, your husband seems real nervous over there. And then he comes back over there to me, and he's telling me, oh yeah, your wife, she seems real nervous. So what do y'all have to be nervous about? I'm like, man, ain't nobody nervous.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get on our damn way.
That's what they teach them. I mean, that's like part of their training is to use that to manipulate people. Yeah,
man. And it's sick. I can't stand the way they do it. And especially when it comes to their use of guns, I feel like, man, if you really want to make this country a better place, you want to talk about gun control, let's disarm the police. Because, tasers would work just fine for what they do. All these times where they're shooting people, and it's like, the messed up part is that they're trained to shoot to kill, because if they kill them, they can't come back and testify against them. You don't see shooting people in the leg, they're shooting them in the chest, dead center. And man, sometimes even execution style. And
yeah, and it's messed up. So that, obviously that happens all the time. They'll shoot people like that and kill them. And then it goes, if there are charges and it does go to trial and the cops put on trial, they'll just bring in the person who trained them. Oh yeah, well, he was just following procedure, doing what he was taught to do. Bam.
Exactly.
Just let him walk out the door.
And over here in Austin, oh man, it for a while it was really bad in Austin with the cops killing people, killing young people, kids, like people with mental illness problems and stuff like that. And it's like I started paying attention to it. Before you would hear about it, and then but once you start paying attention and becoming aware of those types of things that's going on, then you start to see a pattern with the way that they handle it. Because whenever another kid gets killed, typically black, it seems like they're targeted. Black young males are just, man, it's like an endangered species. These cops are, taking them out. And so it's, the public is completely outraged whenever it first happens. And, it's all over the news and they're talking about it. People are mad. And so it's like right away, we want justice. We want answers. We'll show up at City Hall, protesting and this and that. But typically what they do, it's like their protocol. They'll come in and say, well, we're going to start an investigation, and it's going to be a 6-week investigation. And then after those 6 weeks, we'll let you know what we've determined. And I think what they figured out is that 6 weeks is about the amount of time that it takes for people to simmer down about things. because right when it happens, it's like, man, everybody's out. Everybody's furious. 6 weeks later, it's like, man, maybe, the family still remembers and, a few other people, but it's like all that rage is just gone. It's like they forget about it. 6 weeks seems to be that time frame. And then the cops come out, the police chief will come out and say, we've decided we're not putting any charges against this officer. He did whatever. They'll justify whatever he did. And somehow, some way, the cops always seem to be in the right. And I can't think of any that have been punished for their actions, not in this area. I know there have been some in the country that have had to, answer for it, but not so much.
It's very, very rare, for sure. Very rare. Yeah. So when did you get into rapping? Was that before or after you had your stint in prison?
Well, I guess rap's just been my life, man. Since I was a kid, I was just, always liked listening to it since as far back as I can remember. Really like listening to Tupac and, Wu-Tang Clan and Nas and stuff like that. But, I was rapping in high school and, what we used to do back in the day is freestyle flowing. We just, start flowing off the top of our head and just, sometimes it don't make sense. And sometimes we fall off and sometimes we say some real stuff and, the type of stuff that you want to get in the studio and record and, get a lot of, I don't know, it's like a really good mental exercise. And I feel like that's a lost art, the lost art freestyle flow. Cause, I mean, that's what rap started off as, is just, and you're telling a story, but it's, but yeah, in high school, I was doing a little rap, and I guess I was 16 when I recorded my first song. And then, after I got locked up, one of the first things I did when I got out was get in the studio with my Uncle Mike, because my Uncle Mike had been, making some good music, getting some respect, getting some plays out in the streets and doing shows, around Texas mostly, and, touring with Lil Flip and South Park Mexican and, some of these other guys. But man, I got in the studio with him and we started recording and making some really good music, man. I even got to do a song with Bushwick Bill. Got him on one of the tracks, and man, back then he had his studios in this place called Backstage Music, and and he would like charge people to come record their music, and a lot of great rappers would come through there, and I guess they'd sell music out of there also, but and that was a spot back in the day, but I guess that closed down after a couple of years. It just, I guess it got bought out and they turned it into like a club or something.
Right.
But
so, I mean, I know a lot of your rap. I mean, you have the song, the Gardening Is Gangsta song. You have the Dark Corners in My Mind, which really have some, I think some libertarian qualities to them, maybe some anarchist qualities. Do you put yourself, do you label yourself at all, politically, philosophically from that angle?
I never did before. And you notice a big difference in the music that I make. Back then, I'm talking about, money, clothes, cars, and hoes. But now it's definitely on a conscious tip. And I definitely call myself, libertarian. And, I don't know if I identify with the Libertarian Party of today, right. But my heart is libertarian in a Ron Paul sort of way. And he was running as a Republican, but, anybody that knows the real Ron Paul knows that his heart is not Republican. He believes in the Constitution, and he believes in just the principles that made this country great in the first place. Man, we really missed big by not getting Ron Paul as our president, because man, I think he would have been the only one that could have actually really made a difference as far as, people that's been running in these recent elections. And I'm not even keeping up with what's going on right now, because I know by now that it's really just a clown show. So I'm not even trying to populate my mind with any of that madness, because I don't feel like it benefits my life in any kind of way. And I feel like my life is better if I just completely ignore that whole aspect, because it's all fake. It's all just an illusion. And these people are, going after all this power and, playing these games and, putting on these shows for the media. And, especially with the, Donald Trump and impeachment, and, it's all just madness. It's all just a show. I feel like Donald Trump, I feel like he knows exactly what's going on. And I feel like it was all planned out this way. I feel like the outcome has already been, it's all been planned out from the beginning, and he knows what's going on. And,
yeah, I mean, I agree with that to an extent. I mean, I think he's really good at, I'm not going to say that he's planned out all this out, but he's really good at, I mean, he's done it his whole life from a marketing angle, and he can turn things that look like a terrible situation for him and somehow turn it around against other people. So that's exactly what he's done with this impeachment. He's turned impeachment into like a promotion tool for himself. It's really, and I'm not a Trump fan. I'm just stating what's happening. But
yeah, and it's got people talking about him, and I feel like that just gives him more power. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm like, man, I'd rather just ignore it all and just concentrate on empowering myself and empowering the people around me, and just, plus, raising these kids is, I'm trying to be the best father I can be at the same time. And, it's definitely more fruitful to keep my energy here than to give them any of my energy. So that's why, as far as voting, I doubt I'll even make it to the polls. I don't see anybody worthy of a vote, and it's not a system that I want to buy into. I feel like voting is just buying into that system, and I'd rather focus on building something new, than trying to fix this country, because it seems like, well, it's already been bought. It's been completely taken over by, corporations, and it's like most of it's owned by people that don't even live in this country. It's
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue with it. That's true. But the one nice thing is we have vehicles like this, podcasts like this. You have, your music, ways to get a message out. So, and I mean, just to go back to Ron Paul. I mean, Ron Paul, I started following him the first time he ran back in 2007. Mm-hmm. And I mean, to be totally honest, the only reason that I'm talking to you right now and we have this podcast is because of Ron Paul. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had the interest in really the ideas of liberty, and I never would have been exposed to and really, well, I shouldn't say that. I probably still would have been exposed to injustice in the criminal justice system, but I wouldn't have been looking at it the right way. It might not have been as apparent. So, I think it's not a hopeless situation. I think there is some hope out there. It's definitely going to be an uphill battle. We're not going to turn this thing around on a dime, but yeah. I think with the the communication avenues we have today, I think it's doable.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like these waterways are so polluted. There was once a time when you could go and drink out of any stream or river, and it was clean water, and man, the fish were healthy. And it's like, now you can't drink this water, you'll get sick. And man, a lot of places you can't even eat the fish because of the toxic poisoning. Like, I've seen places, especially in Florida, man, it's messed up how they there's like an Indian tribe when I was in the Everglades. They had their own island, and they would live off of the river, the swamp, mainly the fish. But then they planted these sugarcane fields and just sprayed them with so much insecticides and fertilizers, and all of that would run off into the water and contaminated the water, started killing the fish. They couldn't drink the water anymore. And man, after a while, that once, abundant island, they were forced to leave and integrate with everybody else. And man, it's like all this country that once belonged to the Indians, and now it's like they're forced onto these reservations. Them reservations are even being poisoned. I made it out there to Navajo Nation, and man, it's like they put liquor stores up everywhere and flood the streets with drugs and try to get them addicted. And it's like they're attacking these reservations. It's like, they've been killing the Indians from the beginning since they got here, but now they just do it in a different way by trying to give them the tools to defeat themselves. And before you know it, maybe they won't even have those reservations, or they'll just keep shrinking smaller and smaller until they ain't got nothing left. And they're completely integrated.
Yeah. I mean, not to get conspiratorial, but I mean, when you look at this as a whole, what the government's done with the drug war and, forcing drugs onto the black market, they've made all these drugs less safe. The dosage is unknown. It's not known what they're cut with. And that leads to a lot of the addiction problems that you have. It leads to the overdoses. So, right. I mean, who's to say? I'm not going to say that everybody who's an elected official is, thinking, I want to keep drugs illegal because it's going to keep people down. But I'm sure there are certain people who are backing that with their influence and their power and their money.
Right. Yeah, most definitely. But hey, did you ever hear my Ron Paul song?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. That's one you definitely got to check out.
What's it called? I'll put it on the show notes page.
Oh, okay. Well, it's the Ron Paul song.
Okay. Maybe I have heard it and just didn't. I probably have heard it and just didn't connect it.
You might have.
Yeah. Let me just give you some time here to plug your work, plug your albums, talk about, some of your music, tell people where they can find it and all that stuff.
All right. Well, my first project is Weapons of Mass Instruction, and that's available on all the major platforms. The other project, the most recent one that I came out with is For Apocalypse, and that's where that Dark Corners of My Mind is, and a couple of other ones. I got Big Fed on there talking about the Federal Reserve, and then there's Who's the Master, which is like got like a Last Dragon vibe. I don't know if you're familiar with the Last Dragon and Bruce Leroy and all that, but
right.
I got that, and then I got another one called Homegrown, talking about every man deserves his own cannabis tree. Mm-hmm. So that's like a legalize it kind of song, but that one's definitely different because I got like a little bit of a country twang to it. I got some,
okay,
guitar in there, and definitely different from anything I've ever recorded before. But I go check that out. A lot of people like them more than a lot of my rap songs, but
hey, I probably will like that. I mean, there's been a couple artists that are starting to mix together country and rap a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I went straight country with that one though.
Yeah, okay.
But that Gardening Is Gangsta, I put a little bit of country and rap together. I thought that one, that one made rounds. When I went around the world, they were jamming that in Africa and Spain and Italy. Like there's people that's like their anthem out there.
That's awesome.
And that Gardening Is Gangsta, that's on the Weapons of Mass Instruction. And I also got that Watching You Watching Me. That's the one I got. That was I recorded a video at the Millions March, Texas. That was after David Joseph had been killed by a cop. He was unarmed. I think he was 16 years old.
Jeez.
And yeah, he was gunned down by a cop in Austin. And we were over there in front of the MLK statue, and we had a big march down to the Capitol. And so I got to shoot my music video while we were down there, and I got Cedric Benson in there. He passed away recently, but man, it was cool to get him in there, and some other great leaders from our city, and so that ended up being a real good video, and a lot of cop watching in there also. And that's what that's on, watching me. It's about police accountability and filming the cops. I filmed the cops with the Peaceful Streets Project. Man, we used to go out a whole lot more, not so much lately, but I need to get back out there. But we would really, get out there on not only just on 6th Street. I don't know if you know about 6th Street, but it's all the clubs, and it seems like 6th Street is the spot where you see the most action. Cops are just throwing people around, doing whatever they want to do. And, there's been some times where we've caught them doing some really messed up stuff. One time when they were on horses, and, they tried to trample a guy, and then when he turns around, and then before you know it, they're tackling him and beating him up on the ground. And so we were there to record that. And
did you ever have cops come up to you when you're recording and try to forcefully stop you from recording?
Oh, well, they do it all the time. Yeah. In fact, that's why Antonio Beeler got arrested one night when we were out there cop watching, and he was exercising his rights to film the cops, which is perfectly legal, but they didn't like how close he was getting, or they'll make up some kind of reason, and so they handled him real rough, and I was able to get that on video. And then they contacted me from the news asking me if they could use the video on the news that next day, and I told them no, because they asked that we not share the videos. They asked us to take them down just because, until after the court date. So
the news asked you to take them down, or who asked you to take them down?
No, the attorneys asked me to take them down for Antonio's attorney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, asked to take them down. So I was like, okay. And then the news was asking for it, and I told them no, but they got it anyway. They got a hold of it anyway and broadcast it on the news. And he ended up beating the case. I don't know if the video helped with that, but I guess that's the main point of it is, sometimes the cops lie, and if you have them on video, then you can't fake that. So I guess that's the ultimate goal of going out there and filming the cops, but also showing the public what's going on. I mean, they're supposed to be protecting and serving us, but we could show you instances where they're abusing their power and doing things that if the public knew that they were doing it, then they'd be, asking them to be terminated, and, they'd demand change. So that's what I'm hoping, is to inspire people to demand change, because this is very necessary. It's becoming a police state. It's, I don't know if you heard about, they decided to decriminalize marijuana in Austin and stop arresting people. And so, man,
they're doing that. It seems like most major cities are doing that, at least at a minimum level.
Yeah. Well, this is just news over here, because I didn't think it was ever going to happen. Not in Texas, and I don't even know. I don't know.
Oh, that just happened. That just happened in the past week, didn't it?
Yeah, just in the last week. But then Chief Brian Manley comes out and says that it's still a state law and we're still going to enforce it. And so he's not even going to abide by it because they'll be losing too much money. I imagine, that's probably a big part of their revenue is messing with people over, a joint or something, They get them tied up in the system. They got to, go to court, pay court costs, get attorneys, and man, it just keeps that system rolling along. So I think
isn't Austin supposed to be like the most liberal city in Texas? It's not.
It once was. It in the 80s, it was really cool, man. I really liked Austin back then. It's getting way too big, and it's becoming just corporate, man. It's a corporate takeover pretty much. It's the beast from Revelations is just invading on my city and taking it over. And man, Austin's not Austin anymore. The few places that have been preserved are, even getting polluted, and it's just not what it was back then. Austin used to be really cool back in the day.
That's a shame. I've heard good things about Austin, and I'm excited. We're going down. The Libertarian Convention is in Austin, and my whole group, our whole Lions of Liberty group, is going down to cover the convention and interview people, all that stuff. So hopefully there's still some cool things going on in Austin.
Well, I mean, it's still got, I guess it depends on where you go to, but it seems like even when, like, South by Southwest, for instance, yeah, it's cool to go to South by Southwest, but you got to be prepared that you're going to be in traffic for a long time. And, you're going to have to deal with parking, and you're going to have to deal with oceans of people. I mean, yeah, it's a good time, but it's a big commitment. You can't just move around freely anymore. I guess it's becoming a good idea to ride around on a bike. Maybe it'd be a lot more enjoyable like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool. I will keep that in mind. But Mark, wanted to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story. You're really influencing. I think it's cool. You're influencing culture in a couple different ways. You're doing it with your music, but you're also doing it with direct activism, going out there with the cop watching, which I think is really cool, and having a direct impact in some cases, helping people get off charges and things like that. So, thanks for coming on the show, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for listening to today's show, another great episode of Felony Friday. As you know, Felony Friday is one of 3 shows we have here on the Lions of Liberty podcast. Of course, we kick off every single week with our Monday show hosted by Mark Claire. It's our longest running program, our flagship program, where Mark interviews leaders in the Liberty movement. Every Wednesday, we have Electric Liberty Land hosted by Brian McWilliams. It's your weekly shot of culture, comedy, liberty, swearing, and just good fun. Check that out. You can get all 3 shows by subscribing for the great price of $0 per month. You get everything that we have here. So please check everything out. And if you like it all, please consider supporting what we're doing here at Lions of Liberty. A great way to do that is by joining the Lions of Liberty Pride. You can do that by going to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. Another great way of doing that is by following, liking, sharing our stuff on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Lions of Liberty. On Instagram and Twitter, we are at Lions of Liberty. And the discussion forum where all the greatest and brightest minds go to talk about politics, liberty, everything that's happening in the world today, current events, the Lions of Liberty Forum on Facebook, which you can find by typing Lions of Liberty Forum in the search bar at the top of Facebook, clicking search, comes up, say you want to join it, answer a question, bam, you're in, and the rest is just going to be a great journey for you. So check that out. That's all I have for today. This is John Odermatt signing off. Always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.